Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. For this tutorial, we're going to do this beautiful Hindu wedding cake. This one features airbrushing all over and a really unique way to do a gold drip and how to cover your board to match your design style. So let's get right to it. We're going to make the detail for the bottom of the bottom tier. I'm just using this silicone mold and some fondant that has a little bit of Tylose mixed into it, which basically just makes it dry firmer and faster. And I'm going to set them inside of my tray there at that angle because I want them to have that angle around the bottom of the cake. And if they dry in that position, that's how they will stay. So now we're going to go ahead and frost our already pre-filled and crumb-coated cakes. I'm just using my normal American buttercream, which I will try to remember to add a link in the bottom in the description on how you can make it too. It's very reliable and very few, if not no air bubbles. It's the perfect buttercream in my opinion. Now we're just going to make sure all of our cakes are level and smooth and have a crisp corner because we're not hiding much of those in this design. Most of the design element is done with the actual airbrushing. So we're going to frost each one of our cakes the same way. Now I like to use a plastic scraper, but you can use a metal scraper if you prefer. You can even use your spatula if you're good at that. I'm not good at that, on getting the sides nice and level and smooth just using an offset spatula. I can't do that. I know some people can. And if you can, my hat's off to you. And now this is the next day. These have dried, so we're going to go ahead and airbrush them. Now this airbrush is a cordless airbrush. I know you see an attachment to it, but that's just attaching it to the motor end. And I'm just using gold luster dust mixed with a little bit of Everclear to make a good airbrush paint. And now when you make that, you need to make sure that it is thin enough that it's not going to clog up your airbrush, but not so thin that you're not getting good coverage. So it just takes a little playing with. There's really no good way for me to describe to you so that you know immediately that this is the consistency I need. You just got to kind of play with it. I'm trying to think of a good comparison, kind of like an oil consistency, kind of. And there they all are. I can't talk. All airbrush, and I'm just going to set them to the side and let them dry. And in the meantime, we're going to go ahead and airbrush our cakes. The top tier is using the same gold airbrush color. Now you will notice that I'm messing around with my airbrush a little bit, and I want to leave that on purpose because I want you to see that it happens to me too. If your airbrush gets clogged up, the best thing you can do is put your finger over the tip of it, press the trigger, and let the air kind of comes up in the cup a little bit, and it kind of cleans it out a little bit. And sometimes you just need to take that, the needle out and wipe it down a little bit. Now I'm using my other cordless airbrush for the rest of the cakes because they're bigger cakes and I need more airbrush color. And for these, the part that you put your airbrush color in on this airbrush is bigger. So for the colors, what did I use? This was a couple weeks ago. They wanted the middle tier to be more of an orange and the bottom tier to be more of a brighter pink and orange together. So I believe that is exactly what I used on the middle. I used an orange airbrush color with just a touch of pink in it. And then for the bottom one, I used pink with a touch of orange. You want the touch, just a touch. And now I did do a second coat of the gold on there on the top tier, as you saw. Now these cakes have been chilled. I did not put them in the freezer longer than 10 minutes because with airbrush, you don't want it to sweat too much because that can make your color drip. So they were in the refrigerator for most of the time, and then I just placed them in the freezer for 10 minutes to firm them up enough so I could touch them, but not so long that you're going to have excess condensation. Now all these supports are cut the same length. And sometimes I need a little help to get them in there. I'm a little weak, not a lot of upper body strength. So I just use my small fondant or gum paste roller to push those in. And now I'm just doing on the bottom tier, I'm doing a second row of boba tea straws just for an extra added support. Now these middle ones, at least 3 of them, I like to pull up. After they've been pushed down, pull them back up again, add your buttercream that's going to attach the second tier on there. The weight of the cake will push those down. And as you see here, I had to remember that, sorry about the fuzziness. This camera is great for picture quality, but as soon as it sees my face, it picks up on my face and then it all gets blurred out. It's really hard. Anyways, the board that I'm using on each tier to flip it upside down, to get it off of the board, to flip it right back up again, as you saw me do there, make sure that since it's airbrushed that they're smaller or exactly the same as the tier that's going to be going on top, because it could remove your airbrush color. And it's hard to touch up airbrush color once it's already on there and assembled. Now I'm doing a little bit of a fondant around the base of this tier because I wanted to have the base be gold to kind of incorporate that. I thought it was just going to be too stark going from that bright orangey pink to a white board. And then I was going to do a gold ribbon around it. So I figured I better just go ahead and finish off that board, which is honestly my preference anyways, but because I'm going to airbrush that with gold also. And here I have, in between my tiers, I have that white buttercream. And that's okay because I just went back in and just touched up the gold with a small brush and used my airbrush to kind of ombre the 2 colors together there a little bit, just a little bit, to hide that white buttercream. And then I went ahead and airbrush around the very bottom of the tier. Now at this point I had a little bit of condensation, so this embellishment on the bottom stuck without me having to add anything else to it. And that makes my job a little easier. Now if it had been in the freezer, I would have had to put it back in the refrigerator to let it dry out a little bit before I did this, because condensation happens very quickly right out of the freezer. And then I am making my gold drip. I love this gold drip. There's no chocolate involved. It's just gold luster dust mixed with a little bit of oil. And honestly, I don't really have good measurements. I kind of eyeball it. What is it? Maybe about a half a teaspoon of the gold luster dust and then about a tablespoon of the oil. I just use vegetable oil. And then maybe a tablespoon of the powdered sugar. Now, I would recommend sifting the powdered sugar. I didn't take the time to do it, so I just kind of had to work out those clumps a little bit, because you don't want to overwork this, because your gold will, or whatever metal you're using, not metal, but metallic color you're using, will dull out a little bit. If that happens, you can add a little extra oil. That might brighten it up, or add some more of the luster dust. And you just work it together until you get the consistency that's going to be a good drip. And you can see I did a little test on my scraper. That's a hint that I like to tell people, is do a test drip, even with chocolate, to make sure that it's the right temperature and the right consistency. You want it to drip, but you don't want it to drip too far. And with this drip, I like to just spoon it on. You could use a piping bag if you want, but I think it would be a little bit messier, a little bit more out of control, because it is thinner than chocolate. So I feel personally a little bit more in control using a teaspoon. And then I went in, I just spooned in some more of the gold so that it kind of had a more fluid look from the top down to the drips. You don't have to do that, but I just decided I wanted to. And then I just wrapped a gold ribbon around the bottom. My boss put on the flowers at the venue because she made this delivery. So sorry I don't get to show you the placement of the flowers, but I think it turned out so pretty. Love these colors. Such a difference from the traditional weddings. And these are so fun to throw into your mix of, or my mix of videos that I show you. So I hope you liked it, and we'll catch you on the next one.